Oh, hey, YouTube peeps. Welcome to my channel. Guess what? I am doing a new format today, and I've been talking about this for a while. I don't want to just do silly things. I think right now is a time for voices that speak to who God is. We need God more than ever. And so I've been a Christian for a long time, but I'm kind of coming out of the closet, so to speak. It's kind of scary for me to share my faith and reasons to believe. And I think this is kind of the key time in our history where we need to look to God. And so today I'm starting my format with a friend of mine, or a guy that I consider a friend now. This is Ian Juby. He is a robotics engineer and a rail engineer. He's covering the full gamut of engineering. And he's also a creation researcher and teacher and speaker. And so he's going to share a little bit about creation events and sciences. And I just want to introduce him to you. Oh, and by the way, this is just section 1 of probably 3 sections. I'm going to cram it down into like 15 to 20 minute, maybe 25 at the most. This first one's a little longer. It's introducing who Ian Juby is. So let's listen in.
My king's coming back. That's what I'm back.
Ian,
I can't believe you came out of the closet.
I know.
Dude.
It surprised me and my wife.
Okay. Surprised you.
So, Ian, tell me about yourself. Like I've followed you, I think, on the Miracle Channel is where I first saw you.
Yes, right. Mm-hmm.
And was that Generation Week or Genesis Week?
Genesis Week, right? Correct.
Did you have something before that?
No, I started that show on YouTube. And I actually, oh, good grief, I got a YouTube channel literally the year, like within 3 or 4 months of it starting.
And the algorithms were cleaner too, so
yeah, I didn't have all the government censorship and spyware and all that built in yet. That would be years before that came along.
yeah.
I had pitched this show Genesis Week. Originally, it was supposed to be kind of like live in the field, just taking it along. I was in full-time creation ministry at the time. I wanted to I'm down. The pilot show was filmed down in the Paluxy River during the annual excavations of the fossil dinosaur and human footprints found together. And so I was there on site with my TV camera and filming away. And then I edited it into a 28.5-minute show to pitch to Miracle Channel, which because your viewers aren't many of your viewers will be outside of Canada, they won't understand the significance of Miracle Channel and why they called it Miracle Channel. I'm not sure if you even are you familiar with like what happened there?
Yeah, I actually know Dick Dewart. And,
Dick Dewart.
Yeah, because I was connected to Victory Church when I lived in Moose Jaw.
Oh, I see.
And he ended up going to a Victory Church, and then all of this was happening in Lethbridge, I think, right? Where
yes.
He was.
Yep.
With people don't know that in Canada, even radio broadcasting of Christian material, it was stopped in like the 50s or something. Or I can't remember when it was stopped.
Yeah, full-time Christian programming was illegal.
Yeah. So
go
we
ahead.
are not a free nation like people think. I mean, things have gotten better and worse, I would say, but better and then worse.
Yes.
But so Miracle Channel was just a miracle that it was able to not be shut down completely when they started.
Yes.
There was lots of attempts to stop it. So.
And it and it really was a miracle, hence the name they called it that. And I was okay at video production at the time. Majority of what I brought the pilot show to them. The guy played it there, right? I can't even remember who it was because this would have been, oh my goodness, it was a long time ago.
Can I imagine you just mailed it to them?
No, I actually went to Lethbridge. I was in Alberta at the time because I was at the time I was on the road with my traveling creation museum, and so I'm all across the country and everything, all over the U.S. And so I just stopped into the studios one day and chatted with them about, you know, the possibility of carrying my show and what's the process and all that. And they were pretty happy with like 99% of what I was doing. And I was a rank amateur. I mean, I had a lot of experience from when I was teaching at a high school here in Ontario.
I was just going to say, I heard about you there. Like I saw Wazulu was your nickname.
Yes, on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, on YouTube. Okay, so maybe
Yep.
I saw that as well. But and then I found out you were working for CP Rail, right?
Called CN.
CN.
The competition.
Okay. Oh my goodness. I found out you're in Canada. Like
Right.
I didn't connect all the dots, so I was like, this guy's amazing. Because it is so odd in Canada to hear a voice that speaks for the Bible. I mean, I remember when Stockwell Day was running and it came out that he believed in a young earth.
Oh, that was the end of the world.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That's how I started following you, and I'm glad you're here. This is kind of the inaugural launch of what I want to do, this format of interviewing.
It'll be interesting to see what happens with your channel, because I mean you had pretty good success on TikTok, and now moving to YouTube.
I'm also moving, you know, I'm still doing silly things like I was doing on TikTok, but I'm kind of moving into
important.
Yeah, of course. and I've always battled with that. That's one of the things is like, I'm a silly guy, so then people don't take me seriously on other things. But I'm like, but this is who I am, so I just got to be me.
Yep.
So
it's and same here. I mean, I love doing comedy. I love writing comedy. I always try and incorporate it into my shows if I can. I just go with the punches, especially with a hot button topic like creation or evolution, where everybody gets hot under the collar real quick. Like,
yes,
then comedy really helps, because it helps to break the tension and calm people down and stuff like that. But this all ties in with my children's show, because that's my next project, is the children's show, which is going to have a lot of comedy in it. And it's an animated series, a creation science show. But because my time in Sioux Lookout, because I was put there by CN, I made all these connections with the First Nations peoples through that town. And so in my children's show, it's called the Tech Valley Science Center. It's animated, and it's myself and 5 super genius kids.
Nice.
And we all live at the Tech Valley Science Center. And originally I was going to call it Creation Exploration. And Jeff Thiessen, the station manager of Miracle Channel, he's kind of taken me under his wing. Jeff has decades under his belt of children's productions for television. And so what he says to me is gospel truth. If he says something, he knows what he knows. And he also knows what he doesn't know. So if he's not familiar with something, he'll outright tell you. But if he says, no, you need to do this, you do it. He knows his stuff. And we were talking on the phone one day, and they're trying to put together their own version of Christian Netflix for kids, basically, you know.
Right.
And it was in response to that fiasco with Disney Plus last year.
Yeah,
you remember that?
I canceled.
Yeah, a lot of people did. Yep. I called him that day. It was his day off, and it was a couple of days after that. They were already planning on this. I don't even know what they're calling it. I can't remember. But this Christian Netflix for kids, right? He's hugely supportive, really wants it. And he's like, well, what are you calling your show? I said, Creation Exploration. What? No, that's awful. No, that's horrible. No, absolutely not. No, try something else. Come up with something else. Okay. So the Tech Valley Science Center, I had already set that up because I spent 21 years of my life teaching at a summer science camp here in Eastern Ontario. And when I started there, it was the only one of its kind in the world. And the owners, they were two science teachers, and that's how I got my start in all this, in science and tech education. I started teaching there when I was 16, and I've been teaching science since I was 16 years old, literally.
So
And
let's actually go back to that. Like, how did you get to the place you are? Was there a revelation that you had? Did you start out as,
so
straight into evolutionary science and then later realize this is not accurate? And
right. Well, of course, I went to school and I was taught the same thing with regards to evolution as everybody else was, as we all were, right? So I became a Christian when I was 13 years old.
Okay, similar to me, actually.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And which is another reason for the children's show, by the way. Every survey you can find, the vast majority of people become a Christian between the ages of 5 and 15. I backslid for like 8 years, and and during that time was when I went to work at the summer science camp. And I was their right hand man, and I mean, I helped develop some of the programs, and we did workshops in schools all throughout the county, which I don't even know how many schools that was. It was a lot, but literally, we were world leaders in science and tech education. If anybody had any science or tech question, we were the ones that they came to. So anyway, I was started working at that science camp, and so because of this science background, and then when I came back to the Lord, I was right after I graduated from college, so I was probably 20 at the time, which I was actually going to bring up, was when you're dealing with extremely intelligent people, extremely intelligent people are prone to mental health problems. You'll see a lot of autism spectrum. You'll see a lot of Asperger's, and it makes it difficult. And I've seen this in both creationists and evolutionists, because these are all very intelligent. It's a very intelligent science community, and so you wind up with a lot of fights and arguments. And at the time, I mean, I had to deal with my own mental health issues. Because at that time, when I came back to the Lord, I was horribly suicidal, horribly depressed.
Wow.
And it's hilarious because
that doesn't sound hilarious.
Well, no. What happened next, what the Lord did next, because when I was at the camp after summer camp was over, so the bosses sent me upstairs into the attic of the old farmhouse that we had there to go clean up. So I go and clean up, and I find a box up in the attic. To this day, I have no idea how it got there, but in there was my Bible from when I was 14 and 15 years old, with the neon pink cross and Jesus Saves that I had written on it. Wow. And this was my Bible that I have no idea how it wound up there.
Where was this?
In the attic.
The attic
of one of the buildings at the science camp.
Oh, okay. Wow. And that's amazing.
And I like I said, I have no idea how it got there. But I was literally crying myself to sleep. I would wake up in tears. And when you're in that suicidal state, it's you'll get these rages going on, right? And whatever's in your hand suddenly becomes a weapon, because you become self-violent, basically. And it could be comical. I mean, you might be frying eggs, and the frying pan is what's in your hand. And, you have visions of, repeatedly smashing yourself in the head or whatever, right? But other times it's not so funny. You might be holding a gun. You might be out hunting, right? Yeah. And this rage takes over. But this all comes back to our relationship to God through Christ. Because I had backslid, I had told the Lord, take a hike, leave me alone. I don't want to hear you anymore. I don't want to hear from you anymore. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about you. I don't want to talk to you. And so he did as I asked. For 8 years, he just led me to my own schemes. Had a lot of addictions going on, and I just basically destroyed myself. And what happens is when we are separated from God, and you can see this a lot in mental health, merely restoring your relationship with God the Father, it's incredible what it does. I was extremely paranoid at the time, for example. Yet, by merely restoring my relationship with the Lord, if God says good things about you and he loves you and he cares about you, who cares what people think about you?
Right.
You don't care anymore. A friend of mine out in Newfoundland, Kevin, who was a former atheist, he was autophobic, which is a fear of being alone, right? This is another example of a mental health issue. And he pointed out how after he had his relationship restored with God the Father, you're not alone anymore, because you always have, God is always there. He's always there with you.
Yeah.
And the autophobia went away. So it's things like that, right? And so because these are the demographics of people that I'm dealing with, it's extremely intelligent people, and they tend to be very prone to serious mental health problems. Anyway, when I came back to the Lord, I found that Bible. I read through all the Gospels in a couple of days, which I had never done before, and started at Matthew. And I was just so angry at the words that Jesus was saying. I was livid. I would literally whip that Bible against the wall, go over, pick it up again, just to whip it against the wall again. I was so angry. And but eventually it's like, okay, at that point, it had already come to the point where I'm going to turn back to the Lord. If he takes me back, very well. If he doesn't, it's only a matter of time before I do myself in. So what have I got to lose? And so I would go over and reluctantly pick up the Bible again, pick up where I left off and keep reading. And, made it through Matthew, made it through Mark. I was still getting mad, but I was starting to see his point, because he was only speaking the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And then made it through Luke. And by that point, I was calmer, it's like, yeah, okay, I get it. He's saying the painful truth. Yeah, he's making me mad with some of the things he's saying, but he's only saying the truth. And I really want that. So by the time I got to John, I was cheering him on. It's like, yeah, you tell him. But
it's amazing how God does that, eh? Like he can break through. And sometimes I think it's the most angry people, they'll have that Saul like conversion, on the road to Damascus.
Yes.
Where it's like 180 degrees change of heart and, powerful testimony to go with it. And
yes,
it's amazing. God is patient with us, but he also prods us. And sometimes
it provokes us to anger.
Yeah.
He does. Yep.
And then lets you see how foolish that is. Yeah.
So I wound up down at Last Days Ministries, Texas, Lindale, Texas. Keith Green and Melody Green, the singer, of course, they started that. What a fantastic place. They had just become a youth with a mission base. So they were hosting discipleship training schools. And so I went there for a DTS. Our outreach, this was too cool. Our outreach was in Russia, literally 3 weeks after the Berlin Wall came down.
Wow.
We even beat the Mormons in there. It was impressive. They brought in this guy by the name of Dr. Carl Baugh, whom I had never heard of before. And everybody knew me as the science guy, right? Even though my knowledge of creation and evolution, it really wasn't. I mean, the extent of my knowledge was probably Jack Chick's Chick Track, a couple of those. But this guy came in and did a 6.5 hour lecture off the top of his head. And it was riveting stuff. It was stuff I had never heard before. And a lot of it because of my science background. and science education. I understood the ramifications of what he was saying and understood some of the background stuff of what he was saying, right? And I was immediately hooked, because the truth is imperative to me, always has been. And I think that's the way the Lord made me. When I wound up back at Canada, I wound up with a job teaching at a high school, which it was just basically the owners of the science camp. They did all this contract work with the separate school board. And they're like, hey, Ian, there's this high school they're building, and they could really use your help. Can you stick around? I was just going to go back to Texas. I would come to Canada, work during the summer months, and go to last days for several months in the winter. And that was my income for the year to pay for my time in Lindale. Can you stick around for a few weeks? So sure, why not? And it was the coolest thing. They'd spent millions of dollars, on this tech wing, and it was the latest in everything in technology. And I'm a robotics engineer by trade. That's what I went to school for. It was a nice setup, and I had a lot of fun. And so basically my job was get the equipment up and running, teach the teachers how to use the equipment, teach the students how to use the equipment. And my plan was just to go back to Lindale. And at the end of 2 weeks, I'm in the back room, and one of the teachers comes in. He goes, "Congratulations." I said, "Thanks." "What for?" He says, "You got the job." "What job?" I'm not applying for a job. What are you talking about? And then the department head came back in, and he's like, "Congratulations." "Thanks." "What for?" "You got the job." "What job? What are you talking about? I was just there for 2 weeks. That was the plan." And so I go home and I pray about it. I'm like, okay, what's going on here, Lord? This was not my plan. I was just going back to Lindale. Right. And prayed about it, no answer. Prayed about it, no answer. 3 days I prayed about it, no answer. Like, all right, Lord, I have an open door ahead of me. I'm going to take it. If I'm not supposed to, close the door. Okay. So I went there. I wound up teaching at that high school for 10 years. And I needed to, because I learned how to teach. I learned so much. And that very first year, one of the students learned that I was very interested in creation science. He had to do a class project, and he asked the teacher if he could bring me in as a guest speaker as part of his class project. So that was my first ever creation presentation, was in a public high school. And that happened repeatedly over the years. Several times a year, classes would have me come in. Science classes would come down, and I'd give a talk. And so I learned how to give the creation presentations. I did started doing some of my research myself. I started building museum exhibits because back then I was using overheads, right, with pictures and stuff. That's okay. But if I have a museum model of the bacteria in a cutaway view, and it actually moves and shows you the internal working parts of a bacteria and its flagellum tail and the little motor inside that turns the tail and everything, that's just way, way better than pictures could ever do. And then all of a sudden, all these creation museums all over North America started wanting my models. I was the only one building them. And so when I left the high school, that was when I went into full-time creation ministry for 8 or 9 years, I think it was. And basically I had this traveling creation museum of things that I collected or built, fossils or fossil casts that I collected. And
you have an amazing set of fossils, and I think you have like a life-size dinosaur as well.
I got a couple. Yep, I have a couple. Yeah. I don't have them here with me, I'm afraid.
That'd be great. Right in the background, this dinosaur looking over your shoulder. It'd be awesome.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's where all that's at right now. Anyway, we should get to the creation side stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So Here's the question to lead us into this.
Mhm.
Does evolution diminish Jesus? And I'm asking that because there are so many Christians that believe in an evolutionary process.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have to stop this video here. But if you want to tune in to the next video on this channel, D_rock_YT or DRockRum on Rumble, you can tune in to segment 2 with Ian Juby. He's going to talk about such things as, does evolution belief diminish Jesus? And how old are the dinosaurs anyway? Did they exist with man? Stay tuned.